Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Outreachy Live Chat. I hope you're all doing great wherever you're joining us from. I know we have persons joining us on YouTube. Please share this live chat, Q&A live chat, with your circle, your network that are interested in joining Outreachy as a mentor or they want to apply with their community. So today's session is going to be focused on outreach, seeking for mentoring community. So um, we are going to be talking more about mentoring outreach interns. And today we have Sage. Sage is one of the outreach organizers, and we also have some outreach community coordinators. So right now we have one of our guests here. The other guest is going to be joining us during the course of the chat. Um, Hi, Sage. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes. Okay. Hi, Tida. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's nice to be here too.
Yes. Okay. So, a brief introduction. So, Outreach December 2023 application is ongoing, and right now, for mentors, Outreach is seeking for open source and open science communities. We are actually looking for humanitarian open source communities, open science communities, and other open source communities that are out there to join us to mentor our interns for the December 2023. The application have started and is going to be ending soon. So that is why we are having this chat. We are going to be having another chat very soon for mentors, but right now we want to focus on these communities, and that is why we have experts in the house, people who have gone through this part before to share their experience and to also answer some questions that our audience might have. We already have some questions that we're going to be asking, and during the course of the conversation, if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat. We have other outreach organizers there that are going to be answering the questions. Okay, so before we move on, I know everyone might know Sage, so I'm going to skip Sage introduction for now, and I'm going to move over to Tida. Hi, Tida. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tilda. I was an outreach intern for the May to August 2021 outreach cohort, where I interned with Public Lab. And after my internship with Public Lab, I also mentored two outreach cohorts and one Google Summer of Code cohort as a mentor. And I was also the code community coordinator at Public Lab for a while. So yeah, that's basically me.
Yes. And I really like your introduction because you started as an outreach intern, you've gone through being a mentor, a community coordinator. So, which shows that you are the best guest that we have on this chat today. And Sage, being from the outreach organizers part, it's going to be they are going to be giving more details on the application from the organizer outreach organizers perspective. So stay tuned. Um, Okay, if you have any question, keep dropping those. We are going to attend to the questions. Said
Mhm.
you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I also wanted to say that I am a past community coordinator for the Linux kernel as well, and so I come bringing a little bit of that experience too that I'd love to share too.
All right, thank you. So, Sage, we are going to start with you. Like, as an organizer, you are going to give us like a brief introduction to the mentorship. What are the eligibility criteria for communities before we start asking our past? I know you're also like past community coordinator, but right now we want to hear from you from the outreach organizers perspective. What are the things that makes communities eligible for outreach as a mentoring community?
Right. So one of the things that is the heart and soul of Outreachy is our mentors that participate in the program. So what we're what we look for is mentors who are contributors, experienced contributors to a particular open source or open science community, and they basically say, "Hey, community. I would love to be involved in Outreachy. Could we as a community participate as a mentoring organization? So, for example, if you're really active in the Python community and maybe you work on a particular Python library, maybe you get them to participate. Maybe if you work on an open science project that's doing like open data science, maybe you ask that community to participate. Um, so we're really looking for mentors who are that direct connection to come up with a project for the intern to work on and be that mentor for those 3 months. So what we're looking for now is we're trying to have communities sign up to participate. So those communities could be an open source community. So a community that's built around contributing to a particular open source project. It could be an open science community, and open science doesn't have to be code. It could be data science. It could be research. We're looking for mentors who want to mentor projects in documentation, user experience, um, event planning. If you've got an open source event that's coming up, basically any way that you can think of to contribute to open source, we would love to have an internship around it. So, in particular, we're looking for open source and open science communities. So I want to go into a little detail about what that actually means, what we're looking for. Um, so one of the things that we're looking for in our communities is that you probably need to have at least two people involved in your community. It doesn't have to be
Mhm,
big, but two people is good enough, because we want to make sure that the interns are interacting with multiple people, that they're getting a sense of, well, community rather than working with just one person. So if you have two people in your community, even if that second person is like a part-time contributor and there's only one main contributor, that's okay. We just want to make sure that there are multiple people involved. Um, and then on top of having open source and open science communities, we also allow nonprofit organizations to participate. So, for example, we had one nonprofit participate that was called Les Fruits Defendes, which is a Canadian nonprofit that is trying to connect people who want to gather fruits from fruit trees to volunteers. And so they were building a software platform to do that. And so that's an example of a nonprofit that got involved. So nonprofits can get involved as well. Um, but basically, we'd like you to have, 2 to 3 contributors. And some of our rules are flexible for smaller communities versus bigger ones. We're just trying to make sure that the interns have a good experience. There are a couple of hard and fast rules. One is that you have to have open source or open science practices in your community. So your source code has to be open, and or whatever the interns are contributing to has to be publicly available on the web, wherever that is, and under an open source license. Um, your communication medium, so like your community mediums, they don't have to be open. We would love it if you used open source in your community chat, if that was a public chat. But if you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with spam and it's a private forum, it's okay. That is perfectly fine. But we do ask that you have some sort of chat or communication medium. Um, and then the other thing to note is that Outreachy internships are really to connect interns with open source and open science communities themselves. Sometimes companies come to us and say, hey, we'd like to have an Outreachy intern work with our company. And we say, that's not how Outreachy works. We're here to connect interns with open source contributors, not with corporate for-profit companies to do an internal internship. So this is really for yes, this is really for that. Yeah, so that's the other big thing is funding for Outreachy. All the communities need to find funding for one intern. Uh, except if you are an open science or an open source humanitarian project. In that case, we can help you find funding. But if you are an open source project that's not open science or humanitarian, you'll need to find funding for one intern, which is $8,000 USD. So I think that's my spiel. I'll pass it back to Omotola.
Thank you so much, Sage. So Sage already answered the eligibility requirements for mentoring communities, and they also mentioned they also answered some common questions that some persons used to ask us about their communities, about the funding, and so on and so forth. So Sage, I'm going to come back with some other common questions. For now, let's go back to Tilda. So Tilda, Sage has already mentioned several communities. They mentioned humanitarian community, open source community, open science community, and everybody keep hearing community, community, community. I know some folks might be asking, what is actually the community? What does community mean to you? So now I'm asking as a past community, as a community coordinator, what does community mean to you? And also, the next question would be, who are contributors in these open source and open science communities? Who can you count as contributors?
Okay. So the first question, what is a community to me? So, well, a community, that's the general definition before we enter open source. A community is a group of people who share similar interests that come together to achieve a common goal. And usually these communities create a sense of belonging and shared identity and so on. So when it comes to an open source community, this is a community where group of individuals come together to collaborate, be it software, documentation, design. So there are so many roles that contributors can take. In fact, it's so much that I don't think I can even mention all of them. There are so many roles for contributors to come in to open source communities. For example, we have designers, technical people who write technical documentation, community managers, people who write software, and so on and so forth. So there's just a lot that a contributor can do in an open source community.
All right, thank you so much for that answers. I hope our audience and folks who are actually asking that question have a better understanding of what a community is, and also what or who can we count as a contributor in an open source or open science community. So till that, the next question is, you've participated in Outreachy as an intern, as a mentor, and as a community coordinator. That's quite a lot. So why did you participate in Outreachy? Now, my question, the question I'm asking you now is about the mentor part
Okay.
and most especially the community coordinator part. Why did you participate? And let me break the question down. Before you joined Outreachy, what was your experience like interacting and mentoring people? And yeah, what brought about you wanting or being an outreachy community coordinator? What's the motivation?
Okay, so before Outreachy, I had zero experience in tech. I hadn't gotten any job or internship. I was a fresher, if that's the word for it. So I joined Outreachy. I saw a post from someone talking about their experience applying to Outreachy. So I got interested. I learned about what Outreachy was about, open source projects, and so on. And that really got me interested because before I heard about Outreachy, I'd been hearing about open source projects. But whenever I tried to get into it, I didn't really feel like I could do it because I felt I didn't have enough experience, the skills. I didn't feel good enough to contribute to open source projects. So when I saw Outreachy, I saw it as an opportunity to conquer this challenge, basically. So applying to Outreachy gave me the opportunity to experience open source. And I realized that there is so much more to open source than just writing code or writing software and so on. There's a lot. And so when I got into the contribution stage, I had the opportunity to, I think I was contributing to two projects at the time. And one of the things I noticed when I first started contributing was that some people, just like me, were very new to this open source and they needed directions, they needed help. And even though I was still new to everything, I was very, very new, there were still some things I could do because I had been doing them for a while. So, in that instance, I would share my knowledge with those people to kind of put them through. And it was kind of, we're all working together. All of us applicants were all working together to contribute to this particular project. So that really opened my eyes to the fact that open source is much more than just software and coding skills. There's a lot more to this community. That is very important. I think a lot of people forget that aspect of community when it comes to open source projects. It's very important. You need to be able to carry people along. And yeah, that was what applying to Outreachy taught me. And I think there was a second question. I can't. What was the second question, Omotala? Sorry.
What motivated you? And I think you already answered that, unless you want to maybe emphasize on it again.
Okay, let me just add something small. So when I got selected as an intern, my mentors at the time really encouraged me to cut out a small bit of my project. They said if you have a small part of your project that you think is simple enough for a first time contributor to work on, take that part out and create an issue. Let someone else get to work on
Mm,
that project and you guide them. So that experience really opened my eyes to what mentoring actually is. Because before then, mentoring to me was, oh, you have 5 years of experience in doing this, so obviously you can teach someone. But it's not just that. You have an experience, no matter how small. I had been through the whole contributing to the public lab project. I knew how to work my way around it. So I had that experience to give, or that knowledge to give to someone else. And that is what mentoring is about. You've been through this process, you know how it is, you know the challenges, you know how to work your way around it. So you are in the best position to pass that knowledge on to someone else. And that was what motivated me to continue mentoring even after my internship. And I'm really glad I did it because I got to learn so much about mentoring and even myself because I learned a lot about myself because I think
mm,
people think mentoring is just about giving knowledge, but you are also getting something in return. You are
mm.
also gaining a new perspective and so on. So yeah, that's basically it.
I like the way you started from how you started contributing, how your mentors supported you, motivated you to actually bring some part of your project out so that other new interns can also work on it, which actually makes you to actually believe in yourself and to see your strengths that probably as at then you were not seeing. And I think this is going to be a sort of encouragement to new mentors out there that are probably part of any open source or open science community to and also like an insight for them to see ways where they can come in to actually be a mentor, especially for the outreach program, and also be a form of mentor to other people who are just starting out in that particular community. So thank you so much for sharing that. I have another question, but I'll be back. Sage being um Sage also being part of like the community coordinator for Linux Kernel, I know they want to share what motivated them, what they gained, and how it went for them as well. You're muted.
So I initially was approached by some folks in within the Linux kernel community who said, "Hey, we've been asked, does the Linux kernel want to participate in Outreachy? And we thought you would make a good community coordinator." And at the time, I didn't know what a community coordinator was,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was like, "Okay, what do I do?" And so what they explained was I, as a community coordinator, would be someone who would work with mentors to find good, welcoming, inclusive mentors. And I really wanted to find inclusive mentors because the Linux kernel at the time had a very bad reputation. I wanted to try to make sure that we could make a welcoming space for, the people, especially people from marginalized groups, to be able to participate. And so this was something that I felt I could take on, to be able to create the change I wanted to see within my community. And so I was able to find good, welcoming mentors. We participated. And then I think the first round that we participated in, we were talking about, who should work with different applicants. We had so many strong applicants. And I was like, well, we have this one really strong applicant, but everyone else has, picked an intern. Maybe I should mentor too. And so I became a mentor as well. So I was both the community coordinator that first round and a mentor. Might be a little much, but sometimes it happens. Uh, but
Yes.
but basically for me, it was a wonderful experience to be able to work with my intern, Srenia, and yeah, she still works within the Linux kernel with a different company, trying to make sure that their systems work, and yeah, it's been great to continue to keep in touch. To see her kid grow, to be able to see her learn new skills and ramp up her career. But yeah, it's for me, it's is f- well finding a welcoming, inclusive set of mentors to try to
Mhm.
encourage people to be an open source, and not only be an open source for that project, but continue to use and be
Mm.
and contribute to open source over time. So for me, it's not just for the internship, but how do we retain that like diverse group of interns that are coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that inspirational yeah insights. So I know our audience persons that are going to be listening to this chat later will have a lot of things to gain. A lot of persons belong to community. They are just probably in one way or the other contributing to that particular project, but they are not sure of how to give back. But with both of you sharing your experience, how it all started, how you got in, even sometimes when you don't know what you were doing or when you are not sure, how your mentor was able to help you. I know it's going to like motivate other persons to like ask their mentor, ask questions, make suggestion. It all starts from there. Make suggestion, ask question, ask how you can help other people who are asking questions as well. It can start from here. Your mentorship can start from there. So we've been talking about the good parts. I want us to talk about the challenges. I know sometimes when you start something new, especially something you didn't plan for, sometimes you are faced with challenges. So I'm going to be asking both Sage and Tilda, what are the challenges you face as a new community coordinator? Should we start with Sage? Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that was the most challenging for me as the Linux kernel coordinator is that the Linux kernel was and still is very hard to
Mm,
start your contributions with. Um, there's at the time there was very little documentation about how do you build a kernel, how do you make a patch, how do you send a patch to a mailing list, because the Linux kernel still uses mailing lists versus web interfaces. How do you configure your mail client to be able to send that patch? There was a whole bunch of challenges and barriers and pitfalls to even getting like a spelling fix into the Linux kernel. And so what I had to do initially was make documentation about how do you get your system set up? How can you send your contributions in via email? How do you find something to work on? And so that required a lot of documentation on a tutorial. Now, some of that documentation has then eventually migrated, back or been added by different people to the Linux kernel itself. But the documentation was very important for people to help set up their environment. We also needed a way to have people, that the applicants during the contribution period, which is a 1 month period where they work with mentors, we needed something for the applicants to work on. And so at the time, the Linux kernel had um, a subsystem that was called the staging tree, where different code that really needed cleaned up was cleaned up, and then eventually put into the main part of the kernel. And so we would have the interns work on that, and that would be like um, bug fixes and finding errors that automated tools gave them and fixing them. So those were good first time tasks for the applicants to work on. So those two things, basically the challenges were writing the documentation for our newcomers to be able to contribute, make their first contribution, and then second, finding those tasks for applicants to work on were really hard too.
Mm. Okay, so now I think I have another question. Tida, I'm going to come to you. So the question is, we've talked about these challenges. How were you able to solve those challenges, and what will you tell new community coordinators that probably are facing or are going to face this kind of similar challenge?
Right. So with the challenges of finding things for the applicants to work on it
Mhm.
was really important to address that, because in the beginning we had 60 people that
Mm,
applied that tried to make a Linux kernel patch, and then maybe I would say 15 of them actually made some patches, and there was 7 interns out of that we
mm,
selected for that first round. We thought we were only going to have 1 or 2, but we were just overwhelmed by the amount of applicants that we had, and so excited. We were able to find more mentors, but if I had been a new coordinator starting out, um, I would have defined more like tasks for the applicants to work on. I would have gotten that documentation done far ahead of time and maybe
mhm.
found some more mentors. But as is, we kind of did everything at the last minute because we weren't expecting the amount of response we got.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So Tilda, do you want to share, did you face any challenge as a new community coordinator, and how were you able to solve the challenges?
So one challenge I had was feeling like to I had to know everything. So
Mm,
again, in my head, a mentor was someone who is all knowing and all wise. And I didn't think I was. I was not actually. No one is all knowing and all wise. And I no, I initially I felt like I was letting the applicants down who were applying to my project or to the public lab project. And the truth was, it's it's not entirely possible to know everything and to be able to help everyone. What's important is the process in finding that solution. So sometimes applicants would come and they would have problems. I wouldn't know how to solve that issue. So what would I do? I would try to work through the problem with them. So we're together, both trying to solve the problem. And I realized that it's the applicant is learns more when they see you trying to fix that issue than you just telling them, oh, this is the problem, this is how to fix it, and then they go on their way. No, they learn more from that process of working with you and trying to figure out what the problem was. Another challenge was so the contribution stage can be overwhelming for a community with small amount of mentors. There are a lot of applicants that want to contribute. They're very enthusiastic to contribute to your project, and you feel like there's just too many and you can't create issues for every single one. So in that particular scenario, what's helped was creating starter tasks. So for example,
mm,
let's start simple. Let's try running this project on your system. Let's just start from there. And then when they encounter issues that maybe it requires a change to the documentation, that's where the applicant comes in. Oh, they've faced this particular problem and they fixed it on their end. They were able to fix it on their end. Okay, so let's update the documentation so that other applicants don't face the same issue. So creating this starter task and allowing applicants to be able to not able to find this issues themselves and allowing them or giving them the liberty to find the solutions to these problems and fix them. And you'll be surprised by how much or how much these applicants see, because they're coming from a perspective that has no idea what the project is about. They have no idea how to set it up. They have no idea how it works. So they're bringing this fresh and new perspective that you who has been working on that project does not have. They're coming, oh, this is being done this way, but it doesn't actually work this way. Can we try this particular approach? And then they bring these new and innovative ideas that just they make the project really come together. So yeah, that those were like the two challenges, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you're just joining us, so this chat is focused on um mentoring communities that are looking at um applying to Outreachy internship as a mentor or bringing in their community that interested in mentoring Outreachy interns, especially for the December 2023 internship round. So if you're just joining us and you have any question about your community being part of Outreachy, or you as a person wanting to join Outreachy as a community coordinator, if you have any question, please drop it in the comments. Our Sage or Tilda are going to answer the questions. So we'll be looking through the comments to check for your questions. So the next question I have here, we've been talking about community coordinators, what motivated them, how they joined, the challenges they faced. So let's talk about the open source, the community itself. What do this community, any type of community, stand to gain by participating in Outreachy? So I'm going to start with Tilda because I want you to talk from your own perspective. Then I'll move over to Sage to talk from the Outreachy organizer's perspective.
Yeah, so I think I touched on this a bit in my previous answer. The fact that applicants or people who are new to the project are always bringing a new perspective. It's when you work on a project for long, I don't know, I'm looking for the word. You
You
there's a particular perspective you
you
are
become too
just
used to the project.
exactly you know how everything works, you know all the shortcuts, all the quick fixes and all of that, but
Mhm.
someone who is new to the project doesn't, they don't have that particular perspective, and then they come in and they make you realize that, oh, this is not probably the best experience that someone who is newly joining the project should have. So they're able to widen your perspective and help you fix those issues so that it's easier for you to onboard more newcomers to the project. And newcomers also have a better experience than they would have if those new applicants had not joined the project in the first place. And yes, that's what I think. That is one of the things I think open source communities benefit from having interns and applicants join their projects.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Sage, do you want to share some?
Yeah, so one of the bigger benefits that I think of is hopefully the retention of people who are either your interns or sometimes your applicants. So we've had applicants that are like, I didn't get selected as an intern, but I really like this community. I'm going to volunteer my time and then apply for the next Outreachy cohort and hope I get in too. Um, the other thing too is that I've seen personally Outreachy communities benefit just from applying to participate in Outreachy. The Outreachy website asks for very specific information about, like, what are your community chat channels? How do people join? How do people, make issues to say, hey, I have an issue with your project. What's the process for that? What kind of vocabulary or jargon does your community have? And I've had communities come back to me and say, we never thought about the fact that our community has an invitation only for the chat and you had to know someone to be able to participate. And so there's these barriers that newcomers stumble on, and especially inclusivity things that people don't think about. And so applying to Outreachy, working with a diverse set of interns, working with people from marginalized groups can really expand your perspective on how to be more inclusive, how to be more welcoming to people around the world. And so because Outreachy is so global, you're going to get a lot of different people. You're going to get, people who are non-native English speakers, people who use screen readers, maybe people who use other assistive technologies. And all of that is going to broaden your perspective on what your community can do to better support them. So I think that's a good outcome as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I have this question for Sage. So from us outreach organizers' perspective, I wanted to answer this. So I wanted to like give a brief explanation how outreach works from a community perspective, um, from the aspect of application, how community can apply, how they can find mentors to work with them, how do outreach organizers consider their projects, what makes a good project, and the likes, and the application period for the December 2023 round.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to break that up into two separate things that I'll talk about. So remind me about the second part. The second part would be, how do you find mentors? What makes a good project? Let me talk about the how you sign up as a community process first. So with the community process, what you do, the first step is to either contact the outreach organizers and say, "Hey, I'm interested in participating as a community." And you can do that by there's a contact us link under the about us menu that you can use. The other way too is that we've got our community CFP open. And so you can go to that page, which we can drop links to those pages, and sign up as an open source or open science community or a nonprofit to participate in Outreach as a mentoring organization. And there'll be a form that will ask you for information about your community, such as how long has your community existed? How many people are involved? Where are your public repositories for your open source project or open science project or research? Tell us about who participates. Are there specific companies who participate? What kinds of things have your communities done to try to attract a diverse set of contributors or try to be more inclusive? What kind of governance model do you have? A lot of these questions are optional. Some of them only apply to like bigger open source communities. If it's just you and like one other person, doing something cool and you're just working together on your off time, that's okay too. You don't have to answer all the questions, but that form is a start of the conversation that we'll have. And so the sooner you can submit that information to us, the sooner we can start to talk to you, to start to understand more about your community. And what we'll do next is have an onboarding call where I will meet, or another outreach organizer will meet with you, explain how the process works, answer all of your questions, but we can't have that call until you sign up to participate because we don't know you're interested. So my advice is to sign up as soon as you can to participate in the Outreacher website. If we need more details about your community or who's involved, that kind of thing, we'll ask you. So we'll email you for more information. We might say something like, "Hey, I noticed on your website there's this particular wording. What does it mean?" We'll email back and forth with you and talk with you about the particular questions we have, and then you can also email us or DM us or set up another meeting to answer your questions. Once we've had that onboarding meeting, then it's time for you to try to find mentors to try to participate in Outreachy. So those mentors should be people who are welcoming, kind, patient, and someone who can come up with a project for the interns to work on for 3 months. And a good project is something that is well defined. It's something that the community has already agreed on. It's something that could be broken into multiple parts. So maybe if the intern ramps up really fast, they can do more work, or if they need more time to learn new skills, then maybe they do less of the project. So having a project that has like different parts, uh, different pieces that the intern could complete is helpful. Making sure that there's community support for that project is really important, because you don't want the intern to work on a giant project and then submit it into the open source or open science community and then have it be like rejected, or a giant flame, giant flaming thread. So you want to make sure to, you as a mentor, pitch that idea to the rest of the community, get their support to have an intern work on it before you come and introduce it to Outreachy. Um, you, as the community coordinator, are the ones that find the mentors, because you know your community best, who is trusted, who is patient, who is welcoming, who is kind. And so that's what we pair with community coordinators to help with. But if you ever have questions like, is this project appropriate for Outreachy? Should I have this particular mentor participate? You can always ask us. We're here to help. So I think those are those two questions. I think I covered everything, Umatola.
Yes, 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 you did. Okay, thank you so much for answering the questions. I just want to mention that this chat is focused on mentoring communities, free and open source free and open source communities that are interested in mentoring the Outreachy interns for the December 2023 course. So if you're an applicant on this chat and you're interested in applying for the Outreachy internship for the December 2023 course, we have previous chats that focus on applicants guiding. We have insights on how you should prepare for your initial application. We even have chats for contribution stage, and we are still going to be having more chats about the contribution stage. Please check our channel for previous chats. Go through the chat, and if you have any question as an applicant, please feel free to reach out to us via applicants app at outreach.org, or reach out to us via any of our social media platforms. So for our mentors and communities that are interested, if you are here and you have any question, please feel free to reach out to us too via our email address or our social media platforms, or you can as well drop your questions here and we are going to be answering. So to be about to wrap up, but I would like to ask Tilda this question. There are a lot of people out there who feel are they already are above the level of joining Outreachy as an intern. They have the skills to impact other people. They are sure that they can help other people to grow their career via Outreachy, but they are not sure, just the same way you were not sure of if you're actually ready, they are not sure of how they can come in. So what will you tell them? They want to hear from you.
Firstly, I would say give yourself a chance. I think we are our own harshest critics, and sometimes we do not see our own strengths. So, if you think you have the skills to impart on someone else, just take the chance. Contact that open source community you are a part of and ask them if you can be a mentor, or if you meet the eligibility criteria to be a mentor. And you'd be surprised that they are very receptive to this idea, because communities, open source communities, are always looking for mentors, people who know the project to help other contributors who are also new to the project. So give yourself a chance, contact that open source community, and just take the chance, take the jump. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So give yourself a chance. So before I move to Sage, I would also love to add that mentoring other people is actually a very good way to actually grow your own career as a person. So you feel like, oh, you at this stage you already have skills that you can use to impact people. Give it a chance, do it. That is when, just like Tilda mentioned when we were discussing, that is when you are going to even realize your own strengths. You are going to learn more because you don't know everything. Why mentoring? You are going to be you are going to have the chance to do more research, to actually know more things, because people are going to be asking you a lot of questions, and that way you are doing more research, you're getting to learn more on your own path. And not just you learning this time around, you're also being part of a good cause. You can proudly say you are actually part of someone's career, you are part of someone's growth, which is a big one, and something you should be proud of. I know Sage wants to add to this as well. Sage.
The other thing that I want to say too is that I think people, they build up mentorship in their head and they don't realize the
Hmm.
very small things that they do that count as mentoring. If you can answer a question on an open source forum because you've experienced that challenge too, that's mentoring. If you can help someone who's lost and doesn't even know what questions to ask, and help them figure out how to say what questions they have, that's going to help too, and that's mentoring too.
Mhm.
With Outreachy, you don't have to be a full blown mentor where you define a project to work on. You can also sign up to help during the application period. So if there's an open source community that you participate in that's going to be a part of Outreachy, you can help answer applicant questions. You can also be a co mentor. So you could have someone who can define a project for the interns to work on. You can help them during the internship period as a co mentor to also help answer questions that the intern has. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You can sort of build up your skills of mentoring to help applicants become a co mentor and then maybe define your own project too. Or like Tilda, you can just jump right in and define your own project, and the community will help you along the way to be able to support you as a mentor. Outreachy will also be there to help support you as well. We have prompts that we mail to interns and mentors every 2 weeks that says, here's what you should be focusing on this week, here's the kinds of conversation you should be having, here's some tips and advice for how to be a good mentor. And so we'll help you along the way too. We are here to support you. Yeah, so just wanted to share that as well.
Okay, special shout out to our guests for today. Once again, Sage, thank you for always showing up. Tilda, thank you for showing up today as well. We really appreciate you. We appreciate all the insights you've shared. I know a lot of persons are watching right now are going to benefit. Even persons that are going to watch this chat later are going to benefit greatly from all the things we've discussed. And for other folks out there, remember that the application to participate as a mentoring organization is currently up and is going to be ending soon. And mentors, if you are participating, if you belong to any organization, you can as well submit your project. The deadline as well is coming soon. Please note this. If you have any question, once again, feel free to ask the Outreachy organizers. You can also drop it on this chat. We'll be looking through the comments later and answer your questions. So it's been a good ride. And also to mention, we are going to be having another chat on the 22nd of this month, and the chat is going to be focused on Outreachy mentors. So we are going to be having Outreachy past mentors, people who have moved from being an intern to being a mentor, people who start as being a community member to being the community mentor. We are going to be having them join us. So don't miss it. If you are still doubting about being a mentor, maybe you don't know, you are not sure yet about being a mentor, or you need more inspiration, please join us on our next chat. We've already put it out there, so you can set a reminder by clicking on the bell on that particular chat. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can get notification when we have chats like this, another fun chat that we have scheduled for coming weeks and months. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Tilda and Sage, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.